Okay, in today's video, we're going to take a look at calibration with the control CO2 sensor. So I'll take my sensor here and click into it, and let's see what's involved in calibration of this device. So I'm going to click on the calibration tab here. And the first thing to note is that there is a 0 point calibration, which is normally performed in air or nitrogen, and a second CO2 point, which is performed typically on 10 to 20% by volume calibration gas. You have to calibrate on both points in order for the calibration to pass. So let's start off by calibrating in air. So I've got a sensor connected right now, and I'm going to start my calibration here. And let's wait for it to stabilize, and it'll start its process here. Now, it should be noted that it's good to wait the full time period here. So this calibration is a little bit longer than what you see for other sensors like our VisiFirm. So it's a max here of 500 seconds. So I'm going to let that run for a little bit, and then we'll come back. Okay, so my air calibration is just finishing up here. So as it completes here, you will get a note here, and it's past calibration, but it says it's calibration incomplete. And there's a note here that says calibration point 2 is required. So this is part of the 2 point calibration that's required. So I'm going to say done, and I can go down and go to my second calibration point. There's a couple things here that are good to note. One is that you need to have this in 20% by volume CO2, and I recommend that you start flowing CO2 on the sensor here, and that's what I'm going to do right now. So we'll start to see our actual CO2 value going up here. And what should be done is let CO2 flow on the sensor at 20% for about 5 minutes before you start your cal. That will ensure that you get a good calibration. The other thing that I would recommend is that you've got pressure and humidity values here. So you want to take and put in the atmospheric pressure at your location. And if you're using calibration gas, generally it's dehumidified, so you can use 0% here. But you want to adjust that if you're using some other value here. So you can start to see my CO2 value starting to trend up here. So I'm going to give it a little bit of time before I actually start my calibration. So I like to see it trend up and stabilize. So let's give it a second here. So my CO2 has been flowing now for about 5 minutes, and my value is stabilized right around 263 to 265 milligrams per liter. So there's a couple important notes regarding the CO2, and one is that you want to flow with controlled flow rate. So that is a ½ liter per minute. And if you're flowing through a flow cell, you want to make sure you don't have any sort of back pressure on the flow cell. Back pressure will increase the density of the CO2, and that will throw off your calibration. So I'm going to click start here, and we're going to go through the same process here. So the sensor is going to stabilize, and it's going to take readings throughout the calibration for about 500 seconds here. So I'm going to let this run for a bit, and then we'll come back at the end. And now we're just wrapping up our 20% by volume CO2 point calibration. So it's about complete here. And I get my final message here that says calibration successful. And the last thing that I like to do here once it's done is actually save as a report. So this is going to quickly generate me a calibration report for what I've just done. If I want to look at the information on the calibration, I can look at it here under calibration information, and it'll tell me successful for my 0 point, successful for my CO2 point. And if I choose to go and look at my report, I can go over to reports here and open that up as well. And here we go. I've got my report here, and I've got my calibration information saved here as well. So that's good to keep on file for your sensor. Last but not least, when you're wrapping things up, I still have CO2 going on my sensor here. So I need to turn off the CO2. And now I am ready to put this into my measurement until the next time I need to calibrate. So thanks a lot, and hope this was helpful, and let us know if you have any questions. Thanks.